Okie dokie, let us try that all again. We do apologize for the technical difficulties that we seem to be experiencing at the start of each drive over the last few days, but we are back up and running. Genius of one Mr. Alex Voss, who somehow manages to fix problems despite not being anywhere in South Africa or indeed anywhere near us. Now, my name is Jamie, and this afternoon I have Gert on camera with me. And to go over everything once again, we are a live safari, the only place in the world where you can watch a live safari. Not a safari, the only place in the world where you can watch a live safari. Not only are we live, we're also interactive, which means send us through your questions on #SafariLive on Twitter, or you can email through on questions@WildEarth.TV. And not just that, but we are coming to you from Djuma, Arathusa and Cheetah Plains Game Reserve in the Sabi Sand in the Greater Kruger National Park of South Africa. There we go, done and dusted. I think I've ticked all the boxes. Oh, and we've got Rebecca and Lou in final control. There we go. That's all sorted. Steph is out with Dave on camera with him, and together we will be looking for all kinds of marvelous things to show you. Now, I was on my way to Cheetah Plains, however, things have changed. Things have changed completely because I've picked up very, very fresh male leopard tracks on one of the roads coming into this area. I suspect, and I mean I don't for one second claim to be an expert in this, there are certain trackers that can identify individual animals by their tracks. I am not one of them. However, I feel as though the tracks might belong to Sindile, the young male leopard that we had at the end of the sunset safari yesterday. Now, what that means and where that makes life a little bit tricky is he runs away. I discovered that yesterday, where I accidentally bumped into him on foot and he raced away from me. He didn't go far, but he did run away straight away. So I'm going to try and see if we can't find him from the vehicle. While we do that, let's go across to Steph and see if he would like to know, and so that he can say a very good afternoon to you all.
Good afternoon, good afternoon. And we are at Sydney's dam, and have a look at this image of desolation and dryness. I must say I'm quite surprised that this dam has nothing at it. It's just ourselves. I'm Stefan, and on camera today is Dave, and this is the sunset safari here. And we decided to come into this area this afternoon because we had word through our network of informants, basically it's just the friendship circle of guides, that there's a female leopard of some description on her way down to this pan. And I must say, it looks like something has been through here today. I'm not quite sure exactly what, because to be honest, there shouldn't be such a lack of animals here unless there were some lions or there were some leopard or cheetah or some wild dog that have come barreling through here. Now, I did hear a report that some hyena den activity is on the other side of the dam wall, and that could be a good, that could definitely be a good example of what would chase away animals, I guess, if hyena were commonly around here. But as to exactly what is keeping things away from here, I don't know. But nevertheless, what we're going to do is we're going to work our way slowly outwards from this dam. We see if we can find something to show you, or some sign of that female leopard that was in the area. Now, if Jamie hasn't already mentioned it, you're welcome to send us through some questions or any comments that you have. You can use the email questions@WildEarth.TV, or you can use the #SafariLive on Twitter, and we'll try and get through as many of them as we can throughout the safari. And don't worry if you don't know a question to ask us, you can just make a comment. We love your comments as much as what we love your questions. It's quite a hot day today. It's about 86 degrees Fahrenheit here, about 30 degrees centigrade. And this is for us deep winter. We are about to start the swing of the season that will happen now in the next couple of weeks. I always mark the start of the swing of this particular season at being about the first of August, because it's always been the 1st of August. Traditionally, my family have gone away on a bit of a holiday, and I always notice coming back when we used to live on the Highveld, which is the central plateau of South Africa. When we used to come up from the coast and make our way back onto the Highveld, I used to feel like I could take off my jerseys and my layers of jackets. And then when I started to work here in the bush, we realized that somewhere around about the middle of the month, from the 10th to about the 15th of August, all the trees start to flower. All the early blooming trees start to flower. Trees like knobthorns and sjambok pods and weeping boerbeens. And they're always fantastic things because they end up being these big lodestones for a bunch of different birds and insects. And those, of course, being some of my favorite pastimes, looking for those insects. Alright, so no tracks come out on this particular road, which is not too much of a problem. I didn't really expect it to come past the gate and all its noise, but it would have been nice if she was hanging around at that dam. But it is interesting to see that there's a very distinct lack of foot traffic, and that could be just because of the heat of the day. Animals are finding, much like they do on the Chobe River in Botswana, they find it less energy sapping to actually stand at or close to water or at or close to feeding areas during the heat of the day, and then do the majority of their moving at night time. And that could possibly be what we're starting to go in right now. I doubt it though. I think there's a bit of a mix of something going on over here, to be honest with you. I don't think it's quite as simple as just an easy explanation. But there's definitely a definitive lack of footprints going towards the dam and back, at least from the Djuma side of our traverse. It is a wonderful afternoon though. Starting to get these this washed out dustiness that is so typical of the last little bit of the dry season. You can see all around us here, it's almost a pale look to everything. There's a paleness to the sky. It's not that deep blue. There's a paleness to the dust on the leaves and the trees. Everything's turning this sort of hazy greyish blue color, and that'll get more pronounced as we start to approach October, with October lovingly known out here as Hell Month because of the devilishly hot temperatures that we have, the complete lack of any sort of vegetation or any sort of water, and just animals in general just looking not their best, except for lions, of course. Lions and leopard and cheetah and wild dog, they look their absolute best during October, nice and full and round. Alright, we're going to be going down the road over here. I'm busy scanning the game paths that crisscross this road from this drainage basin to this drainage basin, and of course Sydney's dam. And hopefully we pick up something interesting to show you. In the meantime, I do know that Jamie's got an update for you.
At the moment we are walking at a snail's pace. I'm trying to decide exactly what it is we should do in this situation, because apparently we've just got word that there are alarm calls outside our camp that we live at. Here's the last set of tracks I had for him, and just bear with me one moment. I want to get out and just have a look, first of all at the tracks themselves, and secondly I just have a feeling that he might be around here. I can't quite decide whether I want to try and follow up on these tracks because they look so fresh, or whether I want to go racing across to what we call the DRC to see whether or not he pops out here. So these are the tracks themselves. Lovely leopard tracks, beautifully clear, and on a road that Steph drove down 3 times this morning. So definitely on top of the vehicle tracks, apart from being underneath mine, because I drove on top of them initially. So this is the leopard track that we are talking about, with its 3 lobes at the back and his toes. Beautiful. There's nothing more perfect than a leopard track. Now, if you compare them to the size of my hand, perhaps, no. Am I wrong about it being Sindile? Because now that I'm up close and personal, I'm just wondering whether or not there's a possibility that it's Karula that has come back. No, I'm not wrong. These are not Karula's tracks. They're not small enough, I don't think. Crippling self-doubt. No, they're not. They're not Karula's tracks. I wanted to just get out quickly and check where they've gone from here. Unfortunately, I only spotted them when I drove through this area a little bit too late. So I drove on top of some of them, and I did want to just check. I actually wanted to go for a little bit of a walk along the road and just figure out exactly where it is they've gone. I'm going to mark them as the last set of tracks that I saw for whoever else comes along. I think we better go check out those alarm calls though first. But it's not Karula. It is most definitely a young male. While I just go and double check along here, it's just a short walk in. Let's go back to Steph and find out how he's doing.
You just come back to us as we spot one absolutely gigantic kudu. It is one of the largest antelope that we have here in the bush, and he is a prime example of that large antelope. This is the greater kudu, and he's quite easily the largest of the antelope we find here, sharing the top spot with wildebeest and waterbuck. They all weigh around about the same, around about 500 pounds. Only this is a really big example of one, and I'm making that judgment based on two things: the bulk of his actual body, which is quite difficult for you to see in the picture right now because it's obscured by the leaves, and then also by his horns. Old kudu like this have very deep corkscrews, and if you have a look carefully at the tips of his horns, the last, say, hand, 2 or 3 inches, you'll notice that they are busy with their third turn, and the horn points are actually pointing away from one another. This is now an old male kudu. Past his prime, he wouldn't be able to compete effectively against the younger, stronger kudu bulls, but it doesn't take away from the majesty of this particular animal. He's really, really such a pleasure to see. Usually around about this time, they've become lion food, and in areas where hunting is prevalent, quite often old male kudu like this end up on someone's wall. As sad as what that is. I'm just so happy that we don't have any hunting around here. And he seems to be wily enough to have evaded lions. He'd probably be around about 10 years old. And just have a look at him there. Kudu have a very wide diet of leaves and branches and twigs. Next to the elephant and the white rhino, next to the elephant, they eat the most diverse species of plant. They eat about 150 different plants, different species of plants, and only elephant eat more species than what they do. Wow, what a pleasure. Generally, these guys are actually attended by some younger kudu, and I have no doubt that if we have a look around here, we probably will find that there will be 1 or 2 other kudu with him. There he looks at us through the bush. Those huge trumpet-shaped ears catching every sound. He can move those trumpets. You can see he's keeping an ear on us even now. He's moving off into some thicker bush. See if we can get a little bit of a better view of him. I doubt the bush is going to afford us. Looks like we've just got a gap. Oh no, moving through the bush. Wouldn't think with it being so dry that it would actually be this thick, but it is. See if we can go forward a little bit. And I even see another kudu. So the prediction about there being 2 or 3 has come right. See if I can show you. And he should be a younger kudu. There he is. Yeah, you can definitely see, although large, that's the big one that we've just been looking at. And if you pan right, the other one is there. You can just see his horn. It looks like a branch on the right hand side of your screen in that gap. There we go. That's actually a kudu's horn, believe it or not. And you can see that that corkscrew is definitely not as deep as the other one was. Difficult to contrast them now. Although this particular kudu has got a much wider horn spread. There he walks the other guy around the back. We've actually been so lucky seeing both a youngster and an old guy like this. These youngsters are called ascaris, and the only other animal that I know of that displays a similar tendency for these old massive animals to be accompanied by the younger ones are elephant. Have a look at that. Now you can see that that twist in that particular horn is actually quite shallow. I would say that this kudu is no more than 5 years old and still has much growing to do. And look, to be honest with you, horn length and the twist in the horn and how they are spread has got a lot more to do with genetics than age. You sometimes find kudu with very widely spread horns, with very tight horns like that kudu we've just seen. Deep curls, not so deep curls. End of the day, I suppose it's just a hairdo. And Brooklyn, who's only 10 years old. Hello, Brooklyn. You've asked me a question. Our interesting question is like, how long do kudu's horns get? And don't they snag on bushes and branches? Now, Declan, I do know that a really big kudu's horn is around about 50 inches, with the world record horn at around about 62 to 66 inches, somewhere in that gap. So that's pretty long horn, measured along the ridge all the way to the top. So 62 or so inches of horn is the longest that they get. And they don't snag them on bushes because they can actually, if you take the kudu's body here with his nose through there, they can actually put their horns flat along their back and still keeping their nose straight, walk through the bushes, and then they lift their horns up after the bushes. So they go through the bushes or they jump over the bushes, and that's the way that they move through the bushes. But they do hit their horns on branches quite a lot. They're absolutely not as mobile through the bush as something with smaller horns or a female, for that matter of fact. I've got an interesting folklore story. A very dear friend of mine, a tracker, my very first tracker that I worked with, and one of the 5 best men I've ever met on this planet, Richard Nduban, told me a story that he was told that kudu was punished for his vanity. Kudu used to admire himself in the mirror all the time for his big muscles and the way that he stood higher than all the other antelope, and his coat with the beautiful stripes and the dots on it. And he was punished for his vanity by given a choice of horns, and he could have chosen small pointy horns, he could have chosen straighter horns, he could have chosen horns of any length. But kudu, because of his vanity, went straight to the most majestic of all the horns. He picked the spiral long horn, the 60-inch horn, and put that on his head. And therefore he was cursed for his vanity forever onwards, and getting snagged in bushes and getting caught up in branches, making him a bit slower, and obviously then easier for lions to catch. And that's what Richard used to believe solely, that kudu was vain, and he didn't hold kudu in high regard at all. Considered them actually quite close to just general food rather than pretty things to admire like we do. I think let's carry on, unless we get another view of that. There he is. Sorry, Dave. This is one of these opportunities that you can't miss out. It's like seeing an elephant with massive tusks, or seeing a lion with a big mane. You have to appreciate these little wonders when we get them. Now you can see his hips over there are starting to stick out, and that's a sign not only of a bit of malnutrition, but also of the fact that I'm looking through my binoculars now at him, and he is a beautiful guy. A little bit skinny, you can see those hips and his spine starting to stick out, but you can see the back of his neck, all the exercise of those horns. Every now and again when he sticks it up, you'll see the width of that neck, and you'll be able to look down the horns. Now, what's quite funny is that, and this is still on Brooklyn's question, is that a kudu can actually see the tip of his horn. It doesn't look possible. But a kudu can look up. If you look up into the corner of your eye, the top corner, all we can see is our eyebrow, or I can only see my eyebrow, but a kudu can actually see the tip of his horn. If you put your eye on the tip of his horn, you look down the corkscrew of a kudu's horn, you can see his eyeball and his iris, which means that he can see you. And they use their horns not only in fighting and displaying, but they use their horns to hook branches and to break branches that are a little bit too high for their mouths to reach. And so they do serve some function, and not just to hamper his movements. Now that is very typical of a kudu, standing in the open in the open bush, standing camouflaged, hardly even see him. I mean, there's literally only one bush between us and that kudu, and he's still quite camouflaged. Now, I know Jamie has just gotten back to her car, and she has been tracking that young male leopard, and she probably has an update for you or some news on what's been going on. We'll catch up with you in a little bit.
My update is that he is almost certainly in this river system or drainage line here. Now I'm trying to be really careful because I don't want to scare him at all, so I don't want to walk too far into this particular patch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to follow an old off-road track that leads into this drainage system and see if he's not here somewhere in the shade. He's certainly going to be in the shade, that we know for certain. His tracks came straight to this tamboti tree. So everybody keep your eyes peeled as we drive through here, through this river system. As those tracks are so fresh. Hiding under a bush perhaps, or up in a tree. These are all perfect. This is a perfect hiding hole for a leopard like Sindile. Uh-oh. We're about to get ourselves stuck. That would not be fun. That's not good. Why are we doing this? There we go. That was a bit odd, but it's okay. We're up the other side. I don't think I would live it down if I got stuck in here. Alright, his tracks came straight through here. Otherwise what we'll go and do is we'll go and check around quarantine in that area. Hello boy, are you here somewhere? Hiding in the shade. Perhaps on a termite mound, perhaps under a tamboti tree. Lots of perfect hidey holes for a leopard to be sleeping under. There's one small thing that concerns me a little bit, is while I was tracking, I remembered that Steph said that Karula's cub tracks were around Philemon's dip, but hopefully Karula being Karula has stashed them somewhere very secret and very safe, in a very good place. I hope you're all keeping an eye out under every bush for the flash of a white tail, because that's usually what gives away a sleeping leopard. So while I concentrate on searching for him down here, let's go back across to Steph, who has got a member of the pig family.
And something that's quite rare on game drives is seeing these warthogs without them running away. And here we have a sounder of warthog with 2 adult females and what looks like 2 babies, well, 1 baby each, that there's a pair of babies and a pair of adults. And quite often you find successive generations of moms with warthogs all hanging around together. So the one that you have got in the center of the screen there now, that's the oldest one. The next adult will be one of her litter, and then she may have one of the babies and her daughter may have one of the babies, and they'd be utilizing this little bit of grass left in the shade of this particular tree. Warthog really battle in the drought like we've got at the moment, although I must be honest, this warthog looks in prime condition. Her buttocks are quite nice and round. There where the tail comes out, a skinny warthog gets a sharp edge there, and she hasn't got a sharp edge there whatsoever. I know at my house in Hoedspruit, that's where I live, my wife is feeding some warthogs with hail bays at the moment, and I know some of the warthogs that visit her feeding station have become incredibly skinny. This one doesn't look skinny at all, which is good. Testimony that she knows what to do. She knows how to save energy and how to make it. Warthog are grass eaters and generally eat the rhizomes of grass. So generally eat where the grass comes from and utilize their nose. They've got a cartilaginous disc in their nose and they can pick up the rhizome with their disc. It's almost like having a fingernail at the end of your nose. And they pick up the grass and they eat it. Here she's looking. I know it's a female. Have a look closely at the face. You may be able to see, you might have to walk up to the screen. We've run out of zoom on this particular camera. And you'll notice that under the eyes is a pair of warts where they get their names from. And then just at the back of her tusks, there should be another pair of warts if it's a male. She only has the pair of warts under her eyes. And that's how we tell if it's a male or female from a distance, is having a look at those warts. Now, of course, immortalized in the play The Lion King, this is Pumbaa. Let me forward a little bit. And Pumbaa had a love of everything. Now, Abhishek has asked me if warthog hunt other animals. Abhishek, no, they don't, except I have seen them eat carrion. So it's not uncommon for warthogs to arrive at a kill and to start feeding on carrion. They don't kill it themselves. It's almost always dead first. And they definitely will not shy away, especially in dry times like this. They won't shy away from eating meat. And the reason for that is that certain minerals you can only get from meat. Certain amino acids you can only get from meat. And pigs in general have got quite an omnivorous diet. They will eat meat when they can. They will eat insects when they can. Generally though, and I would say here, above 80% of her diet is made up of grass and grass rhizomes. They've got a very interesting habit. For those of you who don't know, warthog live in disused ant bear holes in the side of termite mounds, and they will quite often excavate an additional areas onto their termite mounds. And they do that because they reverse basically into their holes. They go in backwards so that their tusks always point outward. Did you find that interesting? And they can then shoot out of their holes, tusks first, at the first sign of danger, using that very thick, strong neck that they have there to inflict some terrible wounds. They're just having some fun. She's standing in the shade. That's a very clever thing to do on an afternoon like this afternoon, which is in the mid-80s in terms of Fahrenheit. You definitely don't want to be standing in the sun and using any of your pressured water reserves. And MMG has just asked me, would a mother warthog defend her piglets? Would she run at lions or leopards the same as what buffalo do? Absolutely, MMG. I have this wonderful memory of a story about Cheetah. And a mother cheetah, she had 3 babies and she was very hungry. And I watched her stalk these warthog for about an hour. And she eventually ran after this mother warthog and caught one of her piglets. And this mother warthog came like a steam train across this open area and bashed the cheetah in the side, knocking the cheetah off of the baby warthog and thus saving her baby warthog. And they all went squeaking off into the bush, leaving this cheetah incredibly bewildered as to what just happened. But they're absolutely not shy of attacking larger predators. I've watched warthog attack lioness. I've watched them attack leopard, both male and female. Generally, they come off second best with male leopard and with lion, but with female leopard and sometimes with young leopard, wild dogs and cheetah, the warthog definitely isn't at too much of a disadvantage. Now there is some movement in the back there. It looks like those kudu, there we go, it's a female kudu. She's just stepping out, and that would also answer why we had that giant corkscrewed male. Here he's got some females around. Now have a look at how cheeky that warthog is. Obviously doesn't want to share her grass with the kudu. I suppose when there's only a certain amount of grass left, you do what you can. Little does that warthog know that the kudu doesn't eat grass at all. So Mary Edwards has just obviously observed that kudu has a ridge of hair on their back. Now Mary, it's because kudu use that hair to break their profile. So it serves two roles. One is a camouflage function, in that they can erect a crest of hair along their back, and that breaks their profile, making them a little bit more invisible. But secondly, male kudu use it as an intimidating factor to other kudu. They'll erect that crest of hair and then stand side on with one another, and it just makes their profile look that much more impressive. The light is diffused through that crest, and they just look bigger and healthier and more robust. And that is what female kudu like to see, apparently, and what intimidates other kudu. Females, they just have that tiny crest along the back there. Type of mane, I suppose, similar to how a horse would have. Once again, just breaks that profile. And when they're standing with bushes behind them, a very, very effective camouflage technique. You can almost see her head almost disappears entirely behind that bush, even though that bush isn't really thickly leaved at all. There's a baby kudu there as well. Saturday Ocean have just asked me if we get eland and gemsbok here in the Kruger National Park. Saturday Ocean, we do get eland in the Kruger National Park. There's been 1 or 2 records of it in the Sabi Sands. However, I've never seen an eland in the Sabi Sands myself. Gemsbok or oryx, we do not get in this part of the country. We start getting them from the central areas up into the western areas of the country, where they are dry land specialists. You find a lot of them in the drier parts of the country. Hey, there's a red-headed weaver here. He's back. Can I just steal you for 1 second off of the kudu before he flies away? In the top of this tree, we've got a few birds. There we go. And there, go up a little bit. That's a helmet shrike. Up a little bit. There we go. Into that on the right-hand side. Right in the center of the screen at the top is a red-headed weaver. You might just see every now and again this red flash. Now, the birds you're seeing moving inside there are helmet shrikes. The red-headed weavers are a bird we don't see too often. You can just see his head sticking out the top of the bush. He's now flown away. But anyway, confirmed sighting of a red-headed weaver. And there we have the helmet shrikes, or the white helmet shrikes that are left in the tree. Alright, now back to the warthogs. Sorry. For those of you keeping your bird lists out there, it's been many months since we last saw a red-headed weaver. You can go and look through your bird lists at the dates. And that means that the seasons are imminently changing. They start to make their nests in the beginning of August, and is one of the first of the weavers to start building their nests. It's another indicator that the seasons are about to change. The fact that we're seeing these red-headed weavers around. Oh, there's many more than just 2 babies. Jen Ward has just asked me if the summer trees that I was talking about a couple of minutes ago that flower around about now, if they will still flower in the drought. Jen, that's a very, very good question. I I actually can't answer that. They will flower. They might just not flower at the time that I predicted them to flower. It's going to be interesting to see how deep into August we get with these flowering trees. I have no idea. I saw in 1998 when I started a guide in the park, we were heading into a wet year, and there the tree started flowering on the 10th of August. I remember quite vividly seeing my first knobthorn flower on the 10th of August, 1998. And ever since then, they've been sort of between the 10th of August and the 15th of August, where I've seen my first flowers, my first knobthorns flowering. Last year, it probably was around about the 15th of August, the 17th of August, where we saw our knobthorns flowering. But I have absolutely no idea. I don't know how these trees cope with drought. It's going to be an interesting thing for me to see, as well as you, I suppose. But definitely mark it in your diary and check in again on the 10th to the 15th. On that note, let's send you back over to Jamie, who's got an update on her leopard tracking escapade.
I found a leopard orchid. It's the joke that VM always plays on us. Whenever we drive around a corner, VM goes, leopard orchid. And that is the plant that is sitting there on top of the overhanging branch, looking down at us, a parasitic plant that taps into the root system of trees and anchors itself there, or not in the root system, sorry, into the bark system of a tree, and anchors itself there, and grows the most amazing flowers. Unfortunately, that is the one and only update that I have for you. This is in fact called a leopard orchid. James, of course, was famous for, what did he have to do? He had to take a shoot and plant it elsewhere, and it had something to do with having luck with ladies or something. I can't remember exactly what it was that James was doing, but he promptly nearly fell out of a tree doing it, where he managed to climb all the way up into a dead leadwood, and then he plucked a part of it. I'm not sure, you guys will have to remind me exactly what it was that James was up to and why he was attempting to transplant a leopard orchid from one place to another. No leopard orchid. Leopard orchid, no leopard. I keep thinking he's just here somewhere. My only conclusion is that I must have missed his tracks crossing somewhere just in front of me, because at this point I think we should have seen him moving through this area. I even did a little walk, promptly scared a scrub hare that was right next to my feet. It was hiding in a bush right next to my feet. It exploded out and ran away, at which point my adrenaline levels and heart rate skyrocketed. They went through the roof. But we're all okay. Everything's fine. We're all in one piece. There's nothing like a surprise animal. 95% of the scares or the frights that I've had while I've been on foot have been thanks to something small and harmless, whether it be a francolin or a korhaan or a scrub hare, warthog, big one. They're the ones that usually, and I'm sure Steph can attest to that as well, they're responsible for most of one's heart-stopping moments out here in the African bush. Just something that stays still, is so used to staying still that they only move when you're right next to them. And with that rustle of trees, your brain goes into hyperdrive, trying to figure out what it should do next, what it is, trying to analyze every single issue that you're going to have to potentially deal with, all the while fighting that impulse that your feet have, which is to take several steps back, which of course is very, very important that one doesn't do in a real dangerous situation. Very important not to go running anywhere. Sometimes easier said than done. Okay, I think I must have missed his tracks here, because I can't see him, and he must have been somewhere close. And his tracks are very, very fresh, and they were heading in this direction. Unless he crossed here, it'd be next to impossible for me to see without spending a considerable period of time doing it. Oh, we'll have to just do a loop of the area and keep trying, because I want to know now whether or not I'm correct about it being Sindile. That's to me one of the most interesting aspects, is where the way in which he's moving, and the traveling that he's doing is all so fascinating, because it reveals so much in terms of interesting information, since Sindile has been in captivity for 8 months. He's now been released into the wild. He's a young male, and therefore his story, everything that he does, becomes that much more educational in a way, because we're learning something a little bit about the way that he works. Now, I do need to just hop onto the Game Drive channel. I want to let Tax know about this, because one thing he could do is possibly put fan on them. He's going to disappear to the north. Okay, so last tracks, one last double check. The last tracks I had for our young Sindile, it was roughly around here that the scrub hair came bursting out and into my life in a very explosive fashion. And the last tracks I had were here, heading straight in there. It's not possible. I must have missed his tracks somewhere. There's no way we wouldn't have seen him. Absolutely no way. Must have missed them somewhere. Okay, let us expand the search further afield. Tax. Afternoon, Tax. I think there's Nkonzo for that young Madoda. It looks like he's gone into the drainage around Philemon's Dip, Rebecca's area. I've been trying to follow up, no luck so far, but yesterday I noticed he's very skittish on foot. No problem, enjoy your afternoon. Okay, he didn't come through here. I would have seen them. I'm sure of it. So he hasn't come through here. Did he skip across the road somewhere? I think I mentioned this a couple of afternoons ago, but sometimes tracking leopards is like building a jigsaw puzzle where you don't have all of the side pieces and you're not entirely sure what the complete picture looks like. You've got a vague idea, but not completely. It's like you've lost the cover picture or the cover of the box, and you're trying to piece together exactly what they've been up to and where they've gone. Because he's walked all the way along Philemon's Dip here. Why? Where did he come from? Steph had his tracks further to the north there. It all gets very, very confusing trying to figure this out. Perhaps hiding in the shade. Did we drive past him on our way through here? I hope not. I'll be very embarrassed. But anything's possible. One last stop to double check. These perfect hiding spots for leopards make, in turn, finding them. You got tracks there. Aha! Let me just see what Gerrit has got, and then I will be able to answer Mark Kim's question about the way in which predators die. So I'm actually going to do it while I hop out of the vehicle and just have a look. So Mark Kim was wondering, when predators get old, how is it that, what is their actual cause of death? Is it starvation? Is it something similar? Sorry, you're losing my mic. I'm standing between, put the car between us and them. Alright, so, most predators, and these are his tracks by the way, well done that, coming along up Philemon's Dip, which is a very good start. Means we're on to something. Mark, most of them, it will be, they become weakened by hunger because they can no longer catch their own food. And because they become weakened and because they're older, they start to slow down, and then almost inevitably they are killed by one of the other predators. But it depends on which predator we are talking about. So male lions, for example, they may not even get to that stage, since so much of a male lion's life is based around serious competition. I'm just going to do a quick loop through here, since Karula's cubs tracks head in this direction. Let's just have a look around, keep a close eye on what's happening in this area. So a male lion is most likely going to be killed by another male lion. An old lioness is most likely to be killed probably in an injury related to hunting, because as her reflexes get slower, the whole process of hunting becomes more dangerous. Female leopards probably be killed by lions or hyenas, and male leopards actually, because their reflexes get slower. As I said, they get hungry, their teeth get blunted, so they really struggle to hunt and to kill. And that basically applies for the rest of the predators as well. Hyenas, their most likely cause of death is going to be a male lion, again because reactions get slower. So those are the sorts of threats that will face an aging animal. Almost inevitably their death is caused by interaction with another predator rather than actually starving to death. And then sometimes what also happens, because bear in mind an enormous number of the animals out here are carriers of tuberculosis. So that will be another cause of death amongst them, because as soon as the animal starts to get old, as you know, for any mammal, as they get older, their immune systems get weaker. So the tuberculosis that might have been present their whole lives, but not affecting them when they were young and robust, the tuberculosis might have kicked in and started to weaken them as well. And parasites. Once an animal starts to lose condition, those parasites really do take hold and cause an acceleration in that weakening effect. And so far, I've found one scrub hare and one camera-shy squirrel that wants to hop away. Oh no, it's gone. Never mind. Oh dear. Not as successful as I thought it was going to be. Perhaps, Gert, it is time for us to go to Cheetah Plains as we planned originally. Perhaps I should have stuck to my original instincts. Speaking of disease resistance, Bethany has read that cats have antibiotic properties in their saliva, which may help to heal injuries that they have acquired through that process where they lick the injury constantly. And you're wondering whether or not it applies to our carnivores and herbivores in this area. I think that the negative bacteria in a lion or a leopard's mouth, I would say, do more harm than good. The other thing that animals often do, you know how you have to put your domestic cats or dogs in a cone whenever they have an operation, because otherwise they worry at the injury. They lick it and they break open stitches and they actually retard the healing process. The same applies to the leopards and the lions and whatever else happens to injure itself out here. If they can lick it, they do. And that in turn could actually potentially slow down its healing rather than speed it up. But there's a toss-up there, because apart from that, and probably apart from a little bit of pain relief that it provides, for them it also, especially if it's an injury on the foot, as they walk they're going to be picking up dirt almost constantly. So that's another aspect to consider, that perhaps it would be better to keep the dirt out. But I know that if you find yourself ever handling a lion, you really, really don't really want to come into contact with the saliva with bare hands or with any open cuts or injuries, because they are just so bacteria and parasite ridden. And leopards and hyenas and all of the carnivores out here. I'm not sure about our herbivores and whether or not they have, I mean, all saliva has a little bit of antibiotic property in it, even our own, but I'm not sure it would be sufficient to combat a major infection out here. The amazing thing about these animals is that they do combat infection. In fact, they hardly ever get infected, which I always find incredible, because you see animals with injuries that look like if it were the equivalent on a human being would be dead. And yet somehow these amazing creatures out here manage to heal themselves very, very well. And speaking of what lions' mouths are like, obviously they have an interesting diet, and they are not adverse to munching on several day-old carcasses that have started to go green and rotten and smelly. And Fiona, you were wondering about whether or not lions will practice cannibalism and eat a dead pride member. Generally, no. So, especially for the females, that is very much unlikely unless they are absolutely starving. So if a pride member has died in a situation where the pride is starved, then yes, they might end up eating it. Male lions are slightly different. In situations where they have killed an opponent, another potential enemy in terms of an opposing coalition, if they've killed them, they often eat them. Just listening to the updates on the Game Drive channel, sorry. There are lots of recorded cases of male lions eating the bodies of those that they have defeated, and we even had the situation where the Birmingham boys killed an Nkuhuma lioness and fed off her slightly. Apparently, I mean, the rumor goes, I never ever saw this myself, but the rumor is the famous Mapochos. Apparently Mr. T was quite famous infamous for eating those lions that he killed. And I also think there was a great deal of sensationalism surrounding Mr. T and Kinky Tail and the Mapochos in general, just because there were so many of them, that they had such an enormous territory, and therefore that they caused as much chaos as they did. I heard some reports of people calling Mr. T positively evil, which of course he wasn't. He was just a male lion doing male lion things. Hyenas, on the other hand, have no compunction about eating their other clan members. They will feed off pretty much anything. Leopards as well. Okay, I'm going to leave this spot for now. I'll probably follow up as it starts to get a little bit darker. I've had no luck in terms of figuring out where these tracks have gone. So I'm going to move on, and while I do, let's head back over to Steph and find out what his plans are.
Yes, once again we returned to Sydney's dam so that we could have a look and see if the fortunes have changed a little bit, to see if anything is on the way back. And I must be honest with you that nothing much has changed. There was just two impala that were standing there looking all forlorn, and I have a feeling that something is here. There's just something in my intuition telling me that a dam like this should have a procession of animals coming through it and not be so quiet. There must be something here. And equally, I know dams in the Sabi Sands around this time of the year have these sort of resident lions or leopard that hang around them, and I'm wondering if there isn't a lion or a leopard perhaps around Sydney's, and we're very slowly scouring the bush around this particular area to see if we can find any sign. And there were some tracks of some lions going into the bush on this side from probably early last night. And since they weren't found on safari this morning, I can only imagine either they were tracked off of the traverse sometime when I wasn't listening to my radio, or they're still lying inside here, and it's their scent blowing onto the pan that's keeping the animals away. So we just slowly sort of pickling our way through the bush over here, trying to see if we can pick up any other fresh sign. Right now, literally just tracks going into this block, and that's about that, but not even an impala. Nevertheless, I hear Jamie's been having some fun trying to decipher the undecipherable leopard tracks. We definitely, on days like this, miss Brent Leo Smith's enthusiasm at following tracks and his skilled intuition that he has. That man definitely has a sixth sense as to where to find these animals, I tell you. You'd be happy to know that my flu is progressing slowly through its final stages. My nose feels like I've had a live coal inserted up to each one of them, and is burning, probably bright red even as you're looking at it now through your lens. And the nasally nature of my droning voice hopefully isn't putting too many of you to sleep. But we'll get over it. The nice thing out here is because it's so dry, we tend to get over colds and flus relatively easy. We all have a healthy lifestyle out here, most of us do anyway. There's nothing much here is given to excess, definitely. Not much to do out here, except healthy stuff. Alright, so now what I'm looking for is those lion tracks. They now were heading into this block off onto our left hand side. And what I'm trying to make sense of here is if these tracks come out of this block or not. And luckily for us, this particular road has a lot of sand on it, and it will allow us to see relatively easily, I'm hoping, for where those lions cross out. And if they don't cross out on here, it'll give me I think what I'll do is take a quick walk in here and see if we don't find them lying up in some shade somewhere. But the clever thing to do, or the wise thing to do, is to first check the perimeters and make sure that they don't cross anywhere. Otherwise you could spend hours looking for something that has been found somewhere else, usually in a different time zone to where you're looking at the moment, embarrassingly so. Opening you up to much ridicule when you get back around the campfire at night time. But Kathy, you've asked if, while we have a look at these impala, it gives us an opportunity to switch off and listen to the bush around us. Kathy, you asked me if the guides and trackers, or us and the cameramen, have any protection. Kathy, no, we don't have any protection in the car. We don't carry firearms. They'd be ineffectual, mainly because the firearms that you need to kill the animals of the size that they are out here are so overpowered for use in a vehicle. We'll end up doing more damage to ourselves and equipment trying to wield these massive high energy things, and carrying knives and spears are toothpicks against the giant. You know, he's not going to do much with a knife or a spear. So we trust ourselves, we trust the fact that we know how to read these animal behaviors. We know when we're getting or crossing a line. And number one rule out here is animals first. You respect the animals first. They have right of way. This is their place. You respect the fact that if an animal looks upset with you, or looks like, you know, showing their teeth, growling, agitated, trying to get away from you the whole time, if an animal's displaying those types of displays at you, it's absolutely time to make some space or even move away. And that's what keeps us safe, is our behavior, more so than being able to get out of a sticky situation. I hope that answered your question. It's probably not what my mother was wanting to hear me say this afternoon. She's wanting to know that I've got a bulletproof vest on and probably a cuirass that can come up and cover all my vitals in my neck in case of a marauding lion. But I can literally count on my one hand the amount of dangerous encounters I've had, incredibly dangerous, life-threatening encounters I've had in all the years and all the thousands and thousands of animal sightings that I have had, both on foot and in the vehicle. The amount of really dangerous ones you can count literally on your one hand. So we are starting to see a few more animals here. There's another herd of kudu, not the same one that we were following. We've just had a herd of impala right next to the car. Now we have these beautiful, look at that camouflage, hey? That striped skin looking like the dry sticks. And that ridge of fur breaking their outline there. Literally you only see her because of the moving of her lips. Nibbling at the bushes and the grass around us. Got some more kudu coming into the picture from the right hand side. They'll be in your picture in a little bit. These herds of kudu, you find females together almost all the time. I have very rarely ever, if ever, actually seen a female kudu on her own. Normally always together in a herd. And that's because more eyes and more ears make the job of finding and detecting predators that much easier. Now, because we've got lion tracks in this area, I make a mental note of where these animals are, where they're moving. A couple of minutes from now, probably in about an hour or so, the sun will have set and the temperature would have cooled down sufficiently for these predators to start moving and becoming active. And that's when, having marked where these kudu are and where the impala are, is always a good thing. If they see or smell these predators, they'll give it a very distinctive, loud bark. Sounds like a bark. And we can use that then to try and locate whatever's there. There's a youngster that you're looking at in the center of the screen. I don't quite know what sex it is just yet because their horn buds wouldn't have grown, but they would have been born in around about March, right at the end of the wet season. The mothers would all be pregnant now. The rut is in May, so the ladies have their babies in March, April. They are ovulating again in about April, May. The rut occurs. Males are in attendance with these herds when they're at their strongest at the end of the wet season, and then these females are pregnant again through the dry season when their fetuses are quite small, and then into the wet season where the growth of their little babies, generally just one calf at a time, accelerates to a point where they need to have all the vegetation that summer produces for them. And so they give birth at the end of summer. And that would have been this year's crop of youngsters for this particular herd of kudu. Can't see much there. Let's see if we can go forward a little bit. Hang on. Got that one kudu coming into frame there. There literally is only 5 or 6 sticks between us and them. Their camouflage working very well. And what you're looking at there is the prime weight or the prime size of prey for lion. Lion specialize in prey that weigh between 100 pounds and about 500 pounds. And this female kudu, she weighs in a region of about 120 kilograms, so about 250 pounds, and a big male kudu about 500 pounds. Slap bang in the middle of what lion love to hunt. And they're very good at hunting kudu. Kudu being relatively slow moving when they run through the bush. They can jump high. Kudu, they have the ability to jump over bushes. Lion have to run around, and that's how they get away. So kudu, rather than be fast, have got this amazing ability to leap. So they'll bound through the bush and leap over trees and over bushes that lions would have to go around or through to get through. Now, I know it sounds like they can do it, but lions, I think, at the moment, in this particular time frame, in this arms race, lions definitely have the upper hand in that their numbers can block off potential escape routes. And usually when they hunt kudu, it will be successful a lot more than when they hunt, say, zebra or wildebeest, which are more on the open plains. Kudu, they tend to they tend to enjoy quite a lot on the meal. I think let's carry on going. We carry on doing what we intended to do, and that is to circle this block and look to see if those footprints of those lions come out of this block. Let's see what this is. Alright, we've got tracks of a leopard here. I don't quite know what it is, but you can have a look right there. Let's see if I can show you. Just before the big patch, there we go. Well done, Dave. That is a track of a leopard from last night. Looks to be a young male. I'm not going to say that it's in delay. I'm not going to say that it's not another young male or incredibly large female. Very tough to say. Tracks have actually been blown on, and difficult to actually see what it is. Anyway, we're going to carry on having a look to see if these lions cross out of this particular block. Jamie's just got to Twin Dams, and before she heads off to Cheetah Plains, I'm sure she'd like to tell you what she's up to.
Oh, while Steph finds out where those tracks are going, I've left the area for now and I'm going back towards the southern boundary just to see if there's any sign of the lovely Queen of Djuma coming back onto Djuma once again. This morning we had a very, very brief sighting of her. She was clearly hunting and she moved south into Little Gowrie. It's a property that is south of our Traverse area. We are not allowed to drive there, so we couldn't stay with her and follow her. But we know that she crossed alone. She didn't take her 2 5-month-old cubs with her. And that means at some point she's going to have to come back and fetch them. So what leopards do is they put their cubs, they hide their cubs somewhere safe, usually with a couple of nice big trees that the little ones can flee to if they encounter a problem while mom is away. And then she will head off and hunt without them. And that, I mean, makes complete sense because although their instincts are there, their skill is not. And a little cub is very likely to risk the chances of a successful hunt. We saw it with the lion cubs just 2 days ago when they were hunting buffalo. And the 3 little cubs were so disinterested in, well, no, they were interested in what their parent and their mother and aunt were doing. But at the same time, they were also far more interested in playing, jumping on the lionesses, grabbing them, practicing their own hunting techniques. And as a result, the lionesses had a very unsuccessful hunt. And the same applies to our leopards, but even more so, because they are all on their own, they're solitary mothers. And so their work is seriously cut out for them. Now, the last time Karula entrusted her cubs to Djuma and disappeared off, she left them for 2 days in the same place, which obviously she might have come back and visited them at some point. But as far as we could tell, they were all alone for the best part of the 48-hour period before she went back to fetch them. And that's because, as with all of our big cats, most of their hunting attempts are relatively unsuccessful. And the thing that Karula would be... Ooh, come on, Steenbokkie. No, Steenbok gone. Racing away. I was about to say the thing that our female leopards love to hunt are little steenbok and duiker, tiny little antelope, perfect size for a leopard of Karula's size and strength, although it is definitely not outside of her capabilities, and she has done it recently, to catch and to kill adult impala. The go away bird is just half-heartedly calling. I don't think he's got anything. That steenbok was particularly nervous. I wonder whether or not Karula's been in this area. She was definitely this morning because she crossed just here. Let's make extra specially sure that she hasn't come back. No. Doesn't appear to be the case, at least here. Right, and I think what I'll do now is travel all the way along the southern boundary and make my way to Cheetah Plains and do a quick search there, find out what's happening before heading back to Djuma as it starts to get dark and a bit cooler. Because on a hot day like today, almost everything is going to be sleeping, except for leopards. Leopards are an enigma. They don't necessarily follow the rule book, and we found Tingana before moving about on boiling hot days. You can find a leopard pretty much at any time of day. And Chris Rogue, absolutely yes. I said I heard Tingana last night. I assume it was him. Yeah, very clear leopard rasping call at about 2 o'clock this morning. I don't think it's him. And the reason why I say that is Tingana's tracks are noticeably bigger. Tingana does have really, really big feet. Feet that are almost, I mean, I compared my palm to them. They were just over the size of my palm. Tingana's tracks come right up to the middle of my fingers when I rest my hand against his track. So I don't think it was him. That being said, there's definitely a chance that the leopard that Steph was tracking this morning is Tingana. Mike found tracks coming in from Torchwood around Buffelshoek Dam, but with all of those lions around, there's a chance that Tingana's playing a little bit hard to get. And then, of course, there's the leopard that was seen in Buffelshoek that Steph was checking for at Sydney's Dam. The leopard that was seen in Buffelshoek was a big male. It might be Tingana, although he doesn't often venture that far north, but it could be him. Or it's Mvula, actually. There's a chance, because when we saw Mvula, he was right on the Buffelshoek boundary, so our northern boundary. Yes, I definitely heard Tingana. Well, I think I heard Tingana last night. I heard a male leopard rasping, and it's most likely him, especially since he was on Torchwood at the end of the sunset safari. It was 2 o'clock in the morning, though, on a very, very sleepless night, thanks to the elephant visitor that we had come to stay during the evening. There's some very relaxed looking impala here. They don't look as though they've got a care in the world, apart from having a look at us. Still on the southern side of our boundary, nibbling away at whatever shoots they can find. I mean, it's quite clear, it must be clear to all of you. I know Steph was talking about October and how miserable October is as a time to be out in the bush. Not miserable, but it's not fun. And these animals are going to all be struggling to survive. I've noticed quite a few male impala, now that they've come out of the rutting season. In the rutting season, they don't eat, they just fight, especially when they've collected a harem. And they end up losing probably about 5% of their body mass during that time, particularly the big adult males like the one that you're looking at now. And I've noticed quite a few of them really struggling to recover from that particular time, just because even though during our dry season there's always a lack of nutrients in the plants, it is particularly pronounced this year. Nibbling away at whatever they can find. And you have to admire the digestive system that is able to utilize what little nutrients are left. I mean, you look at what he's eating. It's essentially dry leaves. I know it's hard to see, but it's hard to imagine that their digestive system is able to make the most of that. It's actually quite incredible when you think about it. And that, of course, is what has made ruminants so successful. That 4-chambered stomach, with 4 separate stomachs, is a way of ensuring that each and every single bite is as digested as carefully and as thoroughly as possible. Shame. Struggling to get there, having to close his eyes. That's awesome. Kirsty Morris has said that her grandson saw the impala and started to sing Jingle Bells. That's brilliant. Our equivalent of reindeer out here in the African bush. Not quite, but very, very, very perceptive. I've got to find some more for him so that he can continue to sing his Christmas songs. Perhaps Rudolph is next. I need to find an impala that is equally as... Perhaps Nelson, our one-horned, one-eyed impala. Perhaps Nelson could be the equivalent of our Rudolph. It's very sweet. Our impala have moved off further into Little Gowrie, so we shall carry on. Perhaps we'll search for a different large herd for Kirsty's grandson. All the animals are playing hide and seek at the moment. This is another spot that Karula likes to cross on. But there is no sign of her coming back here. It's amazing how... Oh, hello. How regular the patterns of Karula's movements have become since she's had cubs. Not that you could ever describe Karula as regular. I wondered what the oxpeckers were chirping at. There's some female kudu and a youngster. There we go. Isn't that beautiful? I know that you have spent quite a bit of time with kudu with Steph already. You can hear the harsh cries. If you listen carefully, listen for the harsh cries of the oxpeckers. Oh, of course they went quiet as I said that. There we go. Not a pretty cry. I'm not sure if you can hear it, that bzzzt, brrrt sound. And those birds are incredibly important when you are walking and listening in the bush. Because not only do they sit on harmless things like kudu, but they will also be around buffalo and other dangerous big animals. And they... More than once, the sound of a buzzing oxpecker has alerted me to the presence of an animal long before my eyes have been able to pick out exactly where it is. Let me go forward and see if I can't find you one, so that we can actually see the bird that's making the call. And it becomes one of those things that you become incredibly attuned to listening for. There must be some in here somewhere. I can hear them chirping away frantically. There's actually so many kudu in here. We just can't see them all. They're quite hidden behind the vegetation. But as Steph was saying, you always find female together in a group. And then you've got these little long-legged, slightly gangly youngsters. Yes, I'm talking to you. With your oversized ears. Little one's ears look even bigger than the adults do. They have to grow into them. Like that baby steenbok that we saw at Cheetah Plains recently. Okay. Let's move on, since you have spent quite a bit of time with kudu with Steph, and just double check along the southern boundary once, well, but thoroughly, and a little bit further to the east, and then we'll start making our way to Cheetah Plains. I haven't heard any updates, but yesterday morning we just narrowly missed the cheetah, as they cross south into Mala Mala. I'm hoping the logic behind my return there towards the evening will be that they are wandering back across in our direction. Been a long time since we've seen cheetah. It's time, I feel, to break that particular streak, since we've been so lucky with so many other things. Oh, there's a bird. Sorry, hold on one moment. I think there's a bird imitating a human whistle. That's really interesting. Probably something like a drongo or a scrub robin. Ah, don't stop. I can't see it, but you very seldom can. But just listen to that. It's changed what it was whistling. Earlier on it sounded like it was imitating a tracker's whistle. Listen to trying to get the notes right. Now that's almost certainly a scrub robin. I'm trying to work out what it's imitating now. It's changed what it was doing when I first heard it. Searching for the right notes.